So, good evening, everyone. I, on behalf of the entire international legal fraternity, would like to welcome you all to a very fruitful discussion, I hope, and a very interactive session on COVID 19, international law, and Afghanistan, the way forward. Before we begin, I'll introduce myself. My name is Anirudh Chaudhary. I am an assistant professor of law teaching in KIIT School of Law, Bhubaneswar. My specialization is public international law. Well, students, my dear colleagues, seniors, and teachers, today I'm here not to talk about myself, but to talk about an issue which is perhaps one of the most pressing issues which the mankind has been facing. Before we begin, I'll just lay down the outline of the program. Folks, I will be delivering you my thoughts, my ideas, the legal as well as the political position for the next 15 to 20 minutes, perhaps till another half an hour. I'll be talking, then we'll be taking in certain questions, and I would like this session to be much more interactive. So we will begin, guys. Guys, I'm sure all of you have heard of this country called Afghanistan, a beautiful country which has been the envy of the world from the times of Alexander the Great. Every great dynasty has tried to capture this country, but this country has stood out. The Afghan people have been resilient. They have been strong, and no matter what, they have never surrendered the sovereignty or suzerainty to anyone. They have fought on. There is a saying, an ancient Pashto saying. Pashto is the local language of Afghanistan, my dear students. There is a saying in Pashto, which when translated into English means, "O Lord, save me from the venom of the cobra, from the claws of the tiger. O Lord, save me from the venom of the cobra, from the claws of the tiger, but most importantly, from the vengeance of the Afghans." From the vengeance of the Afghans. Why this saying? Because of its history. From time memorial, this area has been attacked. Thousands of invaders have tried to make it as a part of their territory, but many a times they have failed. The real history of Afghanistan, which pertains us today, perhaps starts from 1979 when the Soviet forces invaded Afghanistan. They wanted to make it a communist sphere of influence. Please remember, my dear students and colleagues, we were at the heights of the Cold War, a fight between two supreme superpowers, the USA and the USSR. Soviet Union thought that they could take over Afghanistan. Obviously, the Afghan army surrendered, but history is replete with the fact that the local people of Afghanistan did not give up. Thousands of Afghans fled away to the refugee camps in Peshawar and Quetta in Pakistan. Thousands of them went to Iran, but many of them organized themselves into units known as the Mujahideens, or the so-called freedom fighters. This was a positive point in Afghan history. But again, if I can call it the Achilles heel or the troubling point of Afghan history, thousands of fighters from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other parts of the world came together, waged a guerrilla war. But everyone forgets the history. Who supplied them with arms and ammunitions? It was the American administration. Most of the training and logistical support came from northwestern Pakistan, from the troubled North Waziristan area to the cities of Peshawar and Quetta. It was during this time that a person by the name of Osama bin Laden rose through the ranks, commanded the Mujahideen forces against the Soviet Union, and was a close ally of the United States of America. Isn't it irony? Because during the same time, United States of America had another close friend called Saddam Hussein in Iraq. 1987, the Afghan Mujahideen is finally able to overthrow the Soviet rule. The Soviets leave the area. Guys, why I'm telling you all this is, history repeats itself. And throughout my talks, my dear friends, I will prove as to why in 2021 also, history is repeating itself. After the Soviets withdraw, Afghanistan falls into lawlessness. Thousands of people are internally displaced. The Mujahideen fights amongst itself for the control of Afghanistan. In 1992, the legitimate government of Najibullah falls. There are a series of civil wars. But what do we see? During this time, from the madrasas or the schools of Peshawar and Quetta, a band of fighters come out with the name of Taliban. Taliban is derived from the word Talib, which means student. They promise the then Afghan population that no, enough is enough. The entire world takes us as a toy. We will give Afghanistan a stable government. By 1996, the Taliban overruns. It captures Kabul, comes to the seat of the power. But lo and behold, the world realizes that this group was a gimmick. They are out to implement a legal system which to me was barbaric. A so-called Sharia law which was not acceptable to the most of the world. In 1996, when for the first time, my dear students, please listen very carefully. When for the first time the Taliban came to power, only 3 countries gave them diplomatic recognition: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Pakistan. And Pakistan was the only country in the world which had a functioning embassy in Kabul. For the rest of the world, Taliban was a pariah, a group of barbaric men who wanted to implement one of the most demonic legal systems in the world, crippling the rights of women, children, minorities, education, and everything which was a semblance of normalcy, a semblance of a civilized world, and pushed Afghanistan back to the Middle Ages, back to the Stone Ages. Why I'm saying you this? Perhaps you might wonder, sir, why are you telling all these facts to us? Because many people are saying that today the Taliban which is in power is a better version of the first Taliban rule from 1996 to 2001. Some people call it as Taliban 2.0. But according to me, this is not Taliban 2.0. And the biggest problem is we are facing towards catastrophe. Second, for 5 years, this so-called party or organization, whatever you tell it, my dear friends, it unleashed mayhem in Afghanistan. Thousands of people were killed. Thousands of them fled out of the country. And finally, in 2001, Taliban was removed by American forces in a so-called war on terror. A lot of my friends might say that, sir, you are talking about United States of America, which in the garb of capturing Taliban or Osama bin Laden unleashed mayhem in Afghanistan for 20 years. That was the first time when Taliban was defeated. My dear students might ask me, sir, At that time, was there any opposition in Afghanistan? Yes. Today also that opposition force is there. In a place called Northern Afghanistan, there is a beautiful place called the Panjshir Valley. The Panjshir Valley has always been anti-Taliban. During the first phase of the Taliban rule, please remember, my dear students, a leader rose who was known as the Lion of the Panjshir Valley. He was known as Ahmad Shah Massoud. During 1996, my dear friends, please remember, India supported the Northern Alliance. 5% of Afghanistan at that time was under the control of an organization, my dear students, called Northern Alliance, which was anti-Taliban, wanted to liberate Afghanistan from Taliban rule. They were headed by a charismatic leader called Ahmad Shah Massoud. India, in fact, it is said, ran a military base during that time. Again, important, guys, in 2021. Another fact, during those 5 years from 1996 to 2001, India ran a military base called the Fakhrur military base, which the Northern Alliance is expecting us again to bring back and make it sure that India supports the Northern Alliance. From 2001 to 2021, Taliban was out of Kabul. Now you might ask me, sir, during that time, what was the structure of the Taliban from 2001 to 2021? During that time, my dear students, friends and colleagues, Taliban had two offshoots, one in Afghanistan, the second in Pakistan, called the Tehreek-e-Taliban-e-Pakistan. Basically, two sides of the same coin. They both wanted to foment trouble in Pakistan and Afghanistan. In fact, from 2006 to around 2015-16, the Pakistani army had to wage a war in northern Pakistan and its tribal areas called the North Waziristan because of the influence of these radical groups. Now you might tell me, sir, why was Pakistan afraid of this group? But today, they must also be afraid in 2021. Because please remember that throughout the history of 1970s, 80s, the Pakistani army was covertly supporting the Taliban. All other splinter groups in Pakistan, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Harkatul Ansar, as you call it. Pakistani historians, including Tariq Fateh and Hussain Haqqani, have shown a dangerous trend that because of the influence of these groups, substantial number of soldiers of the Pakistani army and the ISI have been radicalized into believing that a proper military order would mean the implementation of the so-called Sharia law as propagated by these extremist groups. Students may also take note about a so-called incident called the Lal Masjid incident of 2007, which happened in Lahore. The Pakistani army had to drive down extremist elements from a mosque called Lal Masjid. Ironically, my dear students, if you check the internet today, there is another Lal Masjid 2.0 revolution which has started, wherein these groups are asking for a renaissance, for a revival, and if possible, much more closer interaction between the state and the non-state actors in Pakistan and other areas. Guys, if you ask me, this is a very troublesome question. 2014, my dear friends, is a watershed year because please remember, hundreds of school children were massacred in Peshawar, Pakistan. Perhaps history has repeated. Our memories are short. This is the same Pakistani administration which had to declare this organization as a terrorist organization. There were cases in the Pakistani Supreme Court where members of Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan were hanged. were deemed as perpetrators and killers of innocent children. But unfortunately, memories of human beings are short. Perhaps we have forgotten all of this. Cut to August 15th, 2021. August 15th, Pakistan was celebrating its Independence Day with the calls of Jeeve Jeeve Pakistan. On 15th August 2021, as Jana Gana Mana riveted from the Red Fort in New Delhi, Afghans were fleeing away. Why? Because in less than a week, a band of rugged fighters, numbering up to 75,000, had overrun a so-called professional army of 3 lakh Afghan soldiers, funded, trained by American and NATO forces. Many of them had also been trained by our own National Defense Academy. On 7th August, they were in southern Afghanistan. Lo and behold, what do we find? On 15th August 2021, Taliban falls. Taliban comes to Kabul. Its so-called democratically elected president, Mohammad Ashraf Ghani, who had so proudly told on August 14th that Kabul will not give up, that he will fight, had suddenly vanished. There are conflicting reports. It is said that he knew that the Taliban would take over Kabul, that he surrendered without a fight, and while fleeing away, perhaps he fled away with a lot of money, which is again debatable. But what is the truth is, within 1 week, how could a band of rugged fighters living in the caves of northern Pakistan and its bordering areas run over entire Afghanistan? Well, the inevitable has happened. Many of them point out that it was because of the hasty withdrawal of the American forces. American forces, for their own benefit, took Afghanistan for 20 years. Now, when they realized that they were having heavy casualties, they could no longer control the collateral damage. One fine morning, they flee away. This they had done in Saigon, Vietnam in 1975. They have done in many other parts of the world. And in 2021, they did the same. Create a mess, create a furor, and then after which you live away, flee away, and expect that the international community will take care of it. Because your saying is, we are sorry. This is your trouble. Now you have to govern it yourselves. One question which remains a begging. Yes, questions can be asked. You can write it in the chat box. After my session, I will clear each and every question. My question is, for 20 years, you were there as an illegal aggressor, going by the rule of Article 2, Clause 4 of the UN Charter. One fine morning, you flee away after realizing a fact that perhaps this is the best solution. Afghanistan has now fallen. Many of my dear friends might tell me, sir, what is the problem in that? The problem is, many of academic jurists are saying, we are having a better Taliban. This is Taliban 2.0. This is a good terrorist. But please remember, we as students of law know the fact that either you are guilty of a crime or not guilty of a crime. Similarly, there cannot be a good terrorist or a bad terrorist. Taliban 2.0 or Taliban 1.0 does not exist. All of them are the two sides of the same coin. हिंदी में जैसे हम कहते हैं कि एक ही थाली के चटे बट्टे हैं, ये लोग वही फॉलो करेंगे. I have friends who had worked in the UN in Afghanistan. From what I could decipher after discussions with them, I could realize the fact that lakhs of Afghan refugees are fleeing the country every day. You must have seen, my dear friends, that the airport has been overrun. Countries are not able to run evacuation flights. America said that by 31st August, we will withdraw. But many other countries are skeptical of that. Yesterday, the Kabul airport was bombed. Again, that story I will come to. The Kabul airport was bombed, and most importantly, there are security concerns in this region now. A security concern that slowly but steadily Afghanistan is falling, and most importantly, chaos will soon ensure. I will tell you the reason why. Guys, because under law, Taliban is not the legitimate government of Pakistan. The legitimate government, my dear students, as of now in Afghanistan, was their democratically elected government. Once Mohammad Ashraf Ghani abdicated power, the next legitimate leader should be Amrullah Saleh, the vice president of Afghanistan. He has been keeping up the resistance from the Panjshir Valley. Anti-Taliban forces are now fighting against the Taliban forces in northern Afghanistan. The problem is, if you ask me, recognizing Taliban is fraught with dangers. Their human rights record, treatment of women, treatment of children, and most importantly, interpretation of the Sharia law, or whatever they call it, is absolutely absurd. Now, many of us might debate, sir, they are of course a legitimate government. If they were a legitimate government, wouldn't the Afghan people recognize them? Wouldn't the Afghan people accept them? The Afghan people have a right to choose their future. Through elections, they had chosen a democratic setup, a constitution, a rule of law, under which Mohammad Ashraf Ghani was the president, Amrullah Saleh was the vice president. America is playing a wait and watch game. During this time, the biggest problem is, my only fear, guys, is thousands of fighters from all over the world, specifically from Pakistan, are pouring into Afghanistan. Members of Jaish-e-Mohammed, Tehreek-e-Taliban-e-Pakistan, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Harkat-ul-Mujahideen are there with the Taliban forces. I was laughing myself to death when some days back, the Taliban formed an elite commando force called the Badri 313. An elite commando force in par with American Secret Service and our NSG and our Cobra commandos, supposedly trained in mountain warfare and extreme survival. I am absolutely at loss to understand, my dear friends, that can I call Badri 313 a designated commando force or Taliban as the legitimately elected government of Afghanistan, because their actions do not say the same. Slowly but steadily, a lot of countries are moving away, are evacuating their own citizens. Even Pakistan, Russia, and China, which perhaps want to cozy up to Taliban, most importantly, Pakistan and China have their own vested interests. Please remember that China will not invest forces on the ground. It will try to enter into the lucrative Afghan mineral market, where the forces will be committed by Pakistan, because of the fact that Pakistan is a broke state, is on the verge of bankruptcy. If it has to survive, it has to do so with the help of a lot of donor agencies and China. You might be saying, sir, you are talking about a fact which may be hypothetical, but this is something which has been taught to us by the history. You are trying to cozy up to a band of people who have absolutely no respect for rule of law. First, treat women as objects. Third, overrun the country by the use of force. Fourth, do not recognize democracy, which they have openly stated. Fifth, have absolutely no idea about public international law. So therefore, on a jurisprudential basis and a legal basis, I have my own doubts. And why, as an Indian, I'm worried is, in 1996, when for the first time Taliban came to power, that was with the help of the Pakistani deep state, its secret service called the ISI, and the Pakistani army. In 1999, when there were Kargil incursions, there are records to state that apart from regular units of the Pakistani army, its paramilitary forces called the Northern Light Infantry Regiment, there were also units of the Afghan mercenaries who were fighting amongst them. From 1996 to 2001, South Asia was a... I am worried because of the... that at every government and military, they have been brainwashed. Religious extremism and political extremism is now the walk of life. Certain elements of the Pakistani army are celebrating the fact that Taliban is in power. But do you realize the fact that it was from 2007 to 2015-16, you had to wage a war against them? The present chief of Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan carries a 5 million bounty or a reward on his head. He is one of the most wanted men by the American administration. This group, whether it be in Afghanistan or Pakistan, has ensured that it has one of the most brutal regimes of the world, sustaining and trafficking of drugs, women, people, and the cultivation of opium. And such a dangerous thing on the Indian backyard is a dangerous proposition. Daily we are seeing hundreds of Afghan Sikhs and Hindus are fleeing away, taking refuge in India. Thousands of other people are trying to cross over into Iran. Turkey is worried of the refugee crisis. And here is my main proposition. Millions of Afghan refugees are internally and externally displaced. The rule of law has been totally violated. How do you take care of these people? Because in the long run, you will see that thousands of people will come out of Afghanistan for a better life. Hundreds of religious minorities are fleeing away. When for the first time Taliban was in power, they blew away a series of holy Buddhist shrines called the Bamiyan Buddhas. I am very doubtful that Taliban 2.0 has any respect for human rights or freedom rights. Like yesterday, they said that the Islamic State of Khorasan, God knows from where do they get these names, the Islamic State of Khorasan was behind the bombings of the Kabul airport, and both of them were enemies. So therefore, they are the good guys, and the ISIS of Khorasan or the Islamic State of Khorasan are the bad guys. But I fail to understand. You said that the bombing was in the vicinity of the airport. The security should have been taken care by the American people. But folks, these people crossed the barricades in Kabul, came to the airport. Where was your so-called security? Where was your so-called Badri 313? And today you are saying that there are more number of groups which are there, which are fighting for the control of Afghanistan, including the Islamic State of Khorasan and the Taliban. Guys, for 1 minute, I'll be wrapping it up very soon. Guys, for 1 minute, realize the fact that I am a normal Afghan citizen. I want a normal life. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to live a peaceful life. No religion has ever taught me to be ignorant towards each other. I want to live life peacefully. Suddenly, I have the Taliban, I have the Islamic State of Khorasan, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and the Harkatul Mujahideen to take care of. Where will I go away? Next important question is, who is Pakistan as a deep state to decide the future of Afghan people? Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan made a statement that Taliban broke the shackles of slavery. Slavery against whom? Are you trying to show that these people are one and they have driven away the shackles of slavery? Because if I have to understand the words of slavery, guys, Afghanistan should have been a colony. Afghanistan for 20 years was under the rule of Ashraf Ghani and the democratically elected prime ministers. Yes, the NATO and American forces were ensuring their peace and security, but in valid constitutional elections, they had elected first of all Hamid Karzai and then Muhammad Ashraf Ghani as the democratically elected leaders of Afghanistan. 20 years, Afghanistan made tremendous progress in women education, rights. Guys, please go to internet and check about an Afghan athlete called Rohula Nikpai, who had won 2 individual medals in judo in 2008, 2012. India had helped Afghanistan in building a series of roads, dams and infrastructure projects, including the parliament and the Indo-Afghanistan friendship dam called the Salma Treaty. Now, the Taliban comes to power, will slowly undo all these things, and then will say that no, India, please don't be afraid of us. You run your embassy in Kabul, you engage with us. You would have read that once we left our consulates in Herat, Kandahar and Jalalabad, the Indian consulates were ripped apart and totally looted. These are the same people who say that women education may be given a priority, but women are being driven away from schools. Women employees are being thrown away from work. Slowly but steadily, millions of Afghans are fleeing away to Iran, Turkey, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, India, and to a lot of parts of the world. Last but not the least, some of you might ask me, sir, then what is the solution? The solution is in the fact that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There is a big problem which all of us are facing. This problem is that we all want to have our slice of cakes. Countries are interested in their own geopolitics without caring that they are dealing with a rogue institute called the Taliban in Afghanistan and the Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan. What if 1 year from now there is a military coup in Pakistan? क्योंकि दोस्तों, जब पहली बार भी तालिबान पावर में थी 1999 में, the legitimately elected government of Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan was overthrown in a military coup. The then Chief of Army Staff, Pervez Musharraf, had created a military coup, was the one who was responsible for the Afghan endeavor, where Afghan mercenaries had fought hand to hand with the Northern Light Infantry Regiment. So my only fear is South Asia will destabilize. A destabilized South Asia, our nuclear weapons, Pakistan, which might go rogue in case there is a military rule which comes to fore, will mean that India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, every country will be at the receiving ends. You would have already received stories and reports as to how extremism is rising in many South Asian countries. I, for one, as a student and teacher of international law, respect international law, and I would want the United Nations once for all, the UN Security Council, to be proactive, to dime away from their politics and step in. Because remember, you have created a mess, and once this mess is created, you cannot undo it. History repeats itself. My only fear is you might be talking about a Taliban 2.0. As an Indian and a proponent of international law, I do not want to see a Kargil 2.0 or a rise of insurgency in my own Kashmir Valley. Thank you, guys. I'll be now taking in questions if you have any doubts. I've already received 2 or 3 questions. Anurag Mishra here has a question that if, sir, airstrike or surgical strike is conducted over Taliban by US or any other country, after each and every citizens are evacuated, then how will international law see to it? Of course, Anurag, you are referring to an airstrike, which I think today America did in order to kill a so-called person who was accused of the bombings in the Kabul airport. The problem is America releases facts that they've killed this person, this person, this person, not backed up by any evidence. There is no legal evidence, my dear friends, to also tell the fact that whether it was the Taliban or the Islamic State of Khorasan which was behind the massacres in the Kabul airport. The biggest problem which we face as of now is an uncertain and divided Afghanistan. Slowly but steadily, the cancer will grow to Pakistan and it will affect the entire security of the South Asian region. I will take one more question, Pravish. Your saying is religion is the opium of the masses. See, at the end of the day, Taliban are hardliners. From my personal experience, what I can tell you is any terrorist group has no religion. Their only concern is to achieve their own clandestine activities. The people they kill are from all walks of the religion. The Taliban or any other group, the Harkat-e-Mujahideen, the LTTE, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, you call any group, including the German Nazi Party, throughout the history, used a thing which was to their advantage. And that is, my dear friends, human emotions and sentiments. We prima facie are emotional. That is why these organizations tend to misuse this thing of ours. Otherwise, as an individual proponent, I would like to tell the fact that terrorism or killing of people in the name of humanity, in the name of religion, region, caste or creed is deplorable and I condemn it in any form. Next, I will take in another question. Khushi, you have a question that what could be the future of Afghanistan and what could be as a country and what could we as a country do for Afghanistan, keeping our safety in mind too. The problem, guys, is the international community is playing a wait and watch game and so is India. India, remember I told you, ran a military base in support of Northern Alliance called the Farkhur military base. The Northern Alliance want us to start that. But the problem is we need to see that which country is on the which side. Our first priority, Khushi, a brilliant question, Khushi, should be to evacuate as much as Afghan Sikhs, Hindus, Indian personnel, women, and our allies who work for the Indian embassy in Kabul and in our projects. Another question, last one or two questions I'll take. Amlan, you have said that the US intelligence predicted the Taliban insurgency will not pop out for 3 months. The problem is the intelligence agencies had absolutely no idea. Guys, जैसे मैं आपको बता रहा था, they said कि 90 दिन से पहले तो काबुल गिर ही नहीं सकता है. हम ही ने इनके फौजियों को ट्रेन किया था. So there was absolutely no chance that these forces will surrender. But these people surrendered. मैं आपको एक हिंदी में एक चीज बताता हूं. And I will address you by their names also. Sanya, Shamyata, Kavya, Rituparna, everyone. It is a well-known fact that the US forces trained Afghan forces, gave them arms, ammunition or weapons. मैं एज ए ट्रेनर उनको दुनिया का सबसे बेहतरीन हथियार दे सकता हूं, पर लड़ने का जो जज्बा है वो अफगान फौज के अंदर होना चाहिए. ट्रिगर चलाने का जज्बा मैं आपको नहीं दे सकता हूं. यू अंडरस्टैंड? लड़ना आप ही को पड़ेगा. मान लीजिए ऋतुपर्णा जी या समयता जी, आपके घर में अगर कोई घुसपैठी आया है तो सबसे पहले मुहिम आप ही को छेड़ना पड़ेगा. मैं आपको हथियार दे सकता हूं, असला दे सकता हूं, ट्रेनिंग दे सकता हूं, पर लड़ने का वो जज्बा मैं आपको दे नहीं सकता हूं. अमेरिकन फौजें रिट्रीट कर रही थी. द अफगान फोर्सेस अंडर एस्टिमेटेड द तालिबान. एंड रिमेंबर गाइज वन थिंग, द तालिबान, द बैंड ऑफ हार्डकोर फाइटर्स have been fighting for the last 40 years. Their so-called leader Mullah Biradar, who is perhaps now in Pakistani custody, had been fighting the Soviets since 1979. The biggest problem now is the Taliban is supported by the second most feared militant group in South Asia called the Haqqani Network. Haqqani Network looks after the financing and the local recruitment of Mujahideen in South Asia. If I were you guys, I would be afraid of the fact the Haqqani Network, the deep state Pakistani army, units of the Northern Light Infantry Regiment, the Harkatul Mujahideen, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, every one of them in Afghanistan with a fleeing international community and a desperate Afghan civilian population is a recipe for disaster. Kashyapi, you have a question that we all know that India was a key supporter of the anti-Taliban Northern Alliance. What should be now the diplomatic approach of India? Diplomatic approach is again, we should not recognize the Taliban at all costs. क्योंकि तालिबान आप लोग बोलोगे कि सर वो तो हमें वेलकम कर रहे हैं अफगानिस्तान में. गाइस वो हमको वेलकम इसलिए कर रहे हैं क्योंकि हमने जो वहां पे रोड्स, टेलीकम्युनिकेशन, नेटवर्क ये सब बनाया वो तालिबानियों को समझ में नहीं आता. बिकॉज काला अक्षर भैंस बराबर है. They want Indian support in running those dams, the Salma Dam, the Zaranj-Dilaram Highway project. Once these motives are achieved, I do not know how much will they support the Indian government. For a fact, अरे वो किसी के सगे नहीं है. 2014 में the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan carried out an attack on an army school in Peshawar, Pakistan. I fail to understand कि इसके बारे में अफगान तालिबान को पता ही नहीं था. एक ही थाली के चट्टे बट्टे हैं. जब इनको मौका मिलेगा गाइस, जब इनको मौका मिलेगा ये लोग पलट के वार करेंगे. So guys, this I think answers your question. I'll take some more questions. Shubhra, your question is, are the Taliban and Al-Qaeda still close? God knows. What can the international community do about it? The biggest thing is they should come together, freeze the assets of these people. मुझे तो अभी भी ये जान के चौंक रहा हूं कि तालिबान फाइटर्स have captured a lot of armaments from USA, from the Afghan forces who were trained by USA. But abhi bhi guys, आप लोग न्यूज़ देखिए, a lot of these weapons, including artillery, is both US made and Pakistan made. So therefore, the biggest question here is, we need to rein in the rogue states. Pakistan needs to be categorically told that you cannot be cozying up to both the sides. आप दुनिया को बोलोगे कि वी आर द बिगेस्ट थ्रेट ऑफ टेररिज्म, हम लोग सबसे ज्यादा सफर भी किए. बाबा आप ही ने अपने बाजू के आस्थी इनके सांप को पाला है. यू आर द वंस हु हैव क्रिएटेड दिस मेहम इन द मदरसास ऑफ पेशावर, क्वेटा एंड इन द पाकिस्तानी मिलिट्री बेस इन अबोटाबाद. इट इज एन ओपन सीक्रेट that these forces were trained. I will give an example, guys. Osama bin Laden died in a place called Abbottabad in Pakistan. That building was next to the building of the Pakistani National Defense Academy. जैसे इंडिया में we have the National Defense Academy in Pune. In Pakistan, you can check. The Pakistani Military Academy is in a place called Kakul. K-A-K-U-L. Kakul, Abbottabad. उसके बाउंड्री के साइड में ओसामा बिन लादेन जी रहा था. I cannot fathom this fact कि for years this guy was staying there. Neither the American forces knew about it nor the Pakistani forces knew about it. Created a mess throughout the world, and now they want the world to believe that Taliban 2.0 is a better version and that they will run democratically. Guys, उनके डिक्शनरी में डेमोक्रेसी तो है ही नहीं. They don't know the spelling of democracy. To expect them to respect rule of law is another question. Pulkit Aditya, मैं आप लोगों का क्वेश्चन ले लूंगा. Sir, USA was responsible for supporting Mujahideen, which became Taliban. So, sir, can we blame USA for formation of Taliban? Pulkit, very good question. A rhetorical answer. Whatever bad has happened to the world since 1945, in most of them, you will find the hand of USA. The Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the US invasion of Nicaragua, 1980s, the US invasion of Panama, 1989, the US operations during the Taliban era, 1996 to 2001, and after that, the US invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and whatever the USA did in Syria from 2011 to 2019. Directly, indirectly, covertly, overtly, somewhere America or its agencies have been responsible. Aditya, I'll take a question. My question is that how will the situation in Afghanistan create ramifications in assessing the threat of national security? Guys, मैंने आपको प्रूफ किया, हिस्ट्री रिपीट्स इटसेल्फ, राइट गाइस? 1996 तालिबान काबुल में पावर में आया, it became very close to the Pakistani army. 99 Kargil war, we found that elements of the Afghan mercenaries were fighting with the Pakistani army, and cross-border infiltrations were also happening by the same organizations. 3 months after the Kargil war, there is a military coup. The Pakistani government is overthrown by General Pervez Musharraf. The problem is many of them had the Afghan Mujahideen during 19 had trained them, armed and financed them. ये बात अलग है कि 2006 में इसी so called groups ने वापस इनको डस दिया in a place called Lahore. Guys, you can check about a place called Lal Masjid in Lahore. The biggest military standoff in the history of Pakistan happened in Lal Masjid. मैं chat box में लिख देता हूं, Lal Masjid 2007 Lahore, when the Pakistani forces had to fight tooth and nail against the same extremist groups who were threatening to radicalize an entire generation of the Pakistani bureaucracy, population and establishment. My only fear is, because I'm seeing, guys, history is slowly repeating itself. What if with the Taliban 2.0, Pulkit, Amlan, Sania, Samayata, Kavya, what if we have a Kargil 2.0, a Pakistani military takeover 2.0, and my biggest fear is Pakistan has a nuclear weapons program, a covert nuclear weapons program in a place called Kahuta. Guys, internet में आप please check कीजिए, there is a place called Kahuta. मैं लिख देता हूँ spelling उसका. Kahuta is a place near Rawalpindi in Pakistan. It also has nuclear reactors, including the Chashma nuclear reactor. It has intercontinental ballistic missiles, including the Ghori, Shaheen, Hataf, Ghaznavi, Abdali. My only fear is, I may be wrong, students. I'm not a god. I may be wrong. What I am saying is, what if these arms and ammunitions fall into the hand of a rogue military inspired by extremist elements, both within Pakistan and both outside Pakistan? This will be the biggest threat to international peace and security, which I'm dreading about thinking also. So guys, I'm sure that we all had a very fruitful discussion. There are some other questions, but please remember, guys, that everything is now unfolding on a day-by-day basis. My dear students, please remember the fact that we now still have to evacuate a lot of Indians. Pulkit, Prachi, Mahek, Khushi. Our first priority as Indians should be to ensure the safety and security of Afghan Sikhs, Hindus, our very own people, Afghan women, children, and most importantly also ensure the fact that we become united, because in the 6 months you will very well realize the fact that in international law, united we stand, divided we fall. Once we are divided, my only fear is, what if Kahuta and Chashma become another Kabul, Kandahar or Jalalabad, and instead of the flag of the Pakistani army or the Pakistan establishment in Rawalpindi, I see the flag of the Islamic State of Khorasan or the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. That for me is one thing which keeps me awake all the night. I thank all of you guys for taking out your valuable time, being a part of this. This webinar was organized by Into Legal World, a brilliant organization which is training students for competitive examination, calling on academicians like me to discuss about issues of public international law. I'm sure that all of you were greatly enhanced by this discussion. I wish you all the best. God bless you guys. Jai Hind. And still remember one fact, history repeats itself. If not, please go back and read history. I do not want that history repeat itself, and we have absolutely no idea about our history. Thank you guys. Jai Hind. Forever and an Indian and a true student of international, guys. Thank you guys. Jai Hind. Namaskar.